she may have said that you guys submitted questions. We're going to read some of them. You said that? All right. Yeah, so if you guys want to introduce yourself, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself. We can start with you, Paul.
All right, well, yeah, my name's Paul. It's my wife, Drew.
Can we turn
Hi,
the
Drew.
lights up a little bit? We can't see their faces at all.
Yeah, no idea who I'm looking at. But yeah, we've been up here a couple times. Y'all may know my father-in-law, Jim Hockaday. He's awesome. So yeah, we love this church, feel super connected to it, super honored to be here, very happy. A little bit about us, we're just pastors in a small church in South Carolina, so that's what we get to do and live for, and it's really fun, but yeah, that's me.
I keep forgetting they know you guys, so I was waiting for it to come down the chairs, but some people might not know. Anyways, I'm Scott. I'm actually born and raised here in Fuquay. Anybody else born and raised in Fuquay? Like, nobody's from here anymore. Okay, like 2 3/4 people, something like that. I'm from here. My wife is from New York, and we have 4 kids. We are missionaries with Youth with a Mission. Anybody ever heard of Youth with a Mission or YWAM? Kylie's here. She did it. So, yeah, we went to, we did training in Kona, Hawaii, and then set out from there. And so we travel doing worship and teaching and a bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, that's us.
I forgot to mention, I do have 2 kids,
All right.
and my wife is pregnant.
Woo!
You showed me up with that, I was like,
Fruitfulness.
For those of you who might not know, we are the youth pastors here. I'm David. This is Bethany. And Bethany, you going to lead us off?
Fun fact about me. I'm just introducing a side of myself that you may not know. I really dream, like every time I'm taking my kids to school, we're listening to Veggie Tales because I'm a good Christian mom. And I'm just kidding. So anyway, we're listening to Veggie Tales. That's what my kids like. And so I just like envision the TikToks like playing as I'm driving because I'm dancing and going wild. That's a little bit about me. So just to Veggie Tales, that's how I live my life. So yeah, we got some amazing questions, and I'm so excited. It just kind of shows your hunger level to just hear how we can experience God on a daily basis. Shout out to my favorite question. I'm looking. Okay, I think I know who wrote it. But it was talking about, in Revelations, it talks about us riding a horse. But this person wants to know what's wrong with dragons. So I really appreciated that question. Anyway, so we're going to get started with our first question. It says, what does spending time in God's presence look like for you? So, Paul, what does spending time in God's presence look like for you?
It's a pretty big one. Let's see. I guess we're talking about more of the isolated time, or just kind of like. Yeah. So I mean, obviously the idea and the truth is we never leave that presence. We're just not maybe we're not aware of that presence. So like we're in the presence of Jesus right now. The issue is like He lives in us, so you can never escape it. Right? That was like the deception in the beginning, is he thought he could hide behind a tree from God. But you can't. That's the deception, is you can't hide. He already sees and knows. So there's the principle of, we live in the presence of Jesus. So there's just a place to constantly be aware of him. How we were in worship. If you don't even have to have the music. If you have that fellowship, that's such a big thing. Christianity is that fellowship, that co-union, the two just living as one. You'd be surprised how aware of the presence you would be. But more so on the personal side, it's obviously shifted a little bit now that we're pastors and that's my job. But before that, with work and just friends and responsibilities and discipling people, my time with the Lord more so looked like any spare time I had, I'd lock up in my room. So like any spare time, most people like would maybe watch a movie and like get on their phone and you know, I'm not calling those things out, but just my own personal thing here was any spare time. So I'd probably wake up early before work, like way early, and would just get in my closet and be with him. And then when I get home, you know, married, have kids, spending time with them, but then just going and spending more time with the Lord. Practically what that looked like in there is I'd get in my room, whether that be reading, spending time in his word, which is so important, or I'd shut the Bible and just get in my closet in a dark room and wait on the Lord. And most fruitful time of my life for sure is seasons where I had a large amount of time allotted to just wait on the Lord. And we'll probably get into that more, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but there's just like that isolated time where you just lock away, you get in your room, you shut the door, and you spend time with Jesus. But the big mistake is leaving there and leaving him there, right? I mean, we can probably all attest to this, but you can be in the secret place, could be so holy, so great. Then you walk out and you're met with immediate, are you kidding me? This is going on right? Like, just everything's coming against you, it seems like in that moment. So it's so important to realize that communion never stops. And we can keep on being intimate alone and then openly just having fellowship, communion with him. So does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Paul is so relaxing. When you speak, I'm just like, I'm immediately like, yes. It's like, I love it. He's so like pastoral. I'm like, everything's gonna be okay. We're all right. Yeah, same thing. I hate to just get the mic and be like, well, ditto. But yeah, I'll just say like yes to everything Paul said, honestly. And then, but on top of that, I'll just say, I learned. So I became a believer, and then it was like sort of like these glass ceilings. You ever heard that expression? Like it's a ceiling you can't see. I like broke through the ceiling of understanding that I was a son. So I got saved, and then I understood like, oh my gosh, like the God of everything, who created everything, all the cosmos, all the planets, all the galaxies, everything we know, we live and breathe, our lungs in our chest, that's my dad. Like, that's my father. That was a glass ceiling. And then sometime later, just a few years ago, I broke through this next ceiling of understanding that I'm a friend of God. Like Moses understood it, right? Like Abraham understood it. And like Jesus spoke with a familiarity about it. And like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a friend of God. And I had this whole new revelation of understanding that I get to do everything with him. Like I get to do dishes knowing he's right here. Like I get to drive and do this errand, you know, go to the store and walk with him in the store. Like we separate it. Like he's saying, we leave the closet, we leave him there, we leave him in the secret place, and we compartmentalize our lives. But our inheritance is to walk as a friend of God at all times, and then to enjoy what I call the lovely mundane of life, to actually enjoy the everyday things. So we always try to like get to these big mountaintop moments, but your entire life is lived in the valleys, and it's lived in these daily disciplines, and it's lived enjoying God in the lovely mundane of life, just the stuff you have to do, like going to school, being at school, coming home. He's aware and he walks within you, all of it. And we think these big moments where we go to an event and we get some goosebumps, we think that's his favorite moments. I promise you, his favorite moments are just walking with you through your day. And like a good father, you won't understand until you're a dad, but I love my kids so much that I'll just go in their room and just look at them while they sleep. Just because I want to see them. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I don't dare wake them up. It's like, but they're so beautiful when they sleep, and there can be terrors. But anyways, I thought about that recently. I'm like, man, we think these big mountaintop moments, and we're like doing a lot for God. You know, like, God, I give you my all. I'll move to the 1040 window. I'll give my life. I'll die on the missions field. Like these huge prayer moments, and he just loves the moments when you're just sleeping. He's looking at you, or when you just acknowledge his presence when you're just doing dishes or going about your life. So I just want to encourage you guys that you can enjoy God at all times and talk to him. Just talk to him as a friend, even when you're at the store or doing things. Does that make sense to you guys? So anyways, that's the only thing I would add to it.
I'll just say one little thing. I think, we hear Paul and Scott talk about that, and it's like, well, that seems like so much to invite God into just the, like, doing the dishes or whatever. And what I've been amazed at in my own personal life is just that it's a very small tweak. It's actually just like a very small change in your life to just, like, be like, oh, God, you're here. Like, you're here. You're with me. And it just takes a moment, not like this long, drawn out, like, 5-minute, oh, God, come, I'm doing the dishes, come, and, all of that. No, it's not any of that. It is, oh, hey, God, you're here. Like, and it's just as simple as that. And when I started making that a practice in my life, it opened my understanding of the things that I was missing. So Paul's talking about, like, getting into the quiet closet, or everything. If you're living life with God, He will reveal the things that your spirit is craving and needing. And so, like, for me recently, that was like, I had just spent so much time praying in my little, like, prayer area, right? And, like, I'm surprised my floors aren't, like, worn down in that spot from where I'm just pacing back and forth. And God said, I want you to go outside. And it was just like, I went to this nature walk, and I've told some of you about this already, but anyway, I get there, and immediately, because my mind is so programmed to check things off my list, and, like, okay, let's accomplish as much as I can, like, on this list. And so I'm gonna go to this park, and I'm gonna walk as fast as I can, and I'm gonna, like, do as many laps as I can, and blah 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 blah, right? And I saw a leaf. You would never anticipate a leaf to change your whole perspective, or maybe even your whole walk with God. But I saw a leaf, and I thought to myself, Ruby would really love that leaf. I'm gonna pick this up, and I'm gonna take it to her later. And I was reminded of how Ruby goes on walks, which is very, very slow. And it's very, very slow because she's collecting treasures the whole time. She's getting acorns, and, like, oh, this is a cool spiky pine cone. This is a small pine cone. This is, like, and she's telling me all about her treasures, and she's storing them in her pocket, handing them to me once her pockets are full. And God spoke to me. He said, I want you to take the rest of this walk like you're Ruby. And I just want you to be in wonder and in awe of the things that you're hearing, the things that you're seeing, that your physical senses are experiencing. And at the end of that walk, I was just like a mess. Like, God wrecked me just, like, in a public park. People are probably thinking I'm an insane lady. And I'm just a mess because God is just, like, pouring into me. And it's just such a funny thing that I was doing the prayer walk. I was doing the, like, thing that you would think that's what you need to do in order to spend time with God. And I still do those things, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that He will reveal to you the thing that speaks to your heart, and reveal Himself the things that your spirit needs and craves once you kind of just start attuning yourself to His radio, right? All it is just like a small little change in the dial.
That was so good. I have to say something too. So what God told me when we were just thinking about God's thoughts of us, and if it's true of me, then it's true of everyone. God said, I'm fascinated with you. And just, like, collecting some of, what everyone has said so far. That's just so cool. He's a father, he's a friend, co-creator, co-union, I think Paul said. And so this is something that I shared with the youth, but I think it fits so well, and I think it also may lead to our next question. But there's this story by G.K. Chesterton, and I'm going to summarize really quickly. There was two brothers, and they both got a wish. And one brother said, "I want to be massive. I want to be huge." And this is just a fairy tale, just an allegory. And so this genie or whatever it was granted his wish, and he was giant, and he could walk across the whole earth in like a matter of hours. And as the story goes, he himself was so big, he went to visit all the wonders of the world, and ultimately he was very underwhelmed. He said, I've seen everything there is to see, and it was not much to me. And he was depressed and eventually died. The other brother said the opposite. He said, make me infinitely small. And, I'm kind of just summarizing here, but essentially he said, I could spend eternity in the contents of my pocket. And so you see, when yourself becomes small, when you get out of your own way, you have that ultimate fascination that you arrive at awe and wonder, I've heard someone say. And I think that's what Bethany is describing. And so many times the thing that we're focusing on is ourselves, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that doesn't lead to good things. But when we can just be fascinated with God, even with the minute things that we may even find in our pocket, it just reflects God, and that's just amazing to me. All right, the next question. How do you overcome self and surrender every aspect of life to Jesus? Who wants to start with that one? Sir Paul.
You read it one more time? That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. Okay. How do you overcome self? That's the first half.
Okay. So I'm a simple guy, so it just makes sense here. How do you overcome self? You just die to yourself. I'll try and explain that a little bit more. It's funny because I heard this in worship about running in a race. Anyone ever ran in a race before? Small, big. You're only running in the race because you decided to start the race. Very simple. You're only currently in that race because you decided to start the race. You're not in the race if you don't decide to start the race. So how do you die to self? Jesus said, listen, if you even want to be my disciple, there's actually two things you got to do. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. So the first thing Jesus says to people who want to follow him, who in here wants to follow Jesus? Literally the first thing he's saying is, he didn't say a prayer to get to heaven. He said, deny yourself. So die to everything you were and are and thought and knew before Jesus. And so what that entails is the best you know how in your heart, the best conviction that you have. Man, I need to die to this. I need to die to this selfishness, this. You know what pushes your buttons. The thing about the gospel is he takes away your buttons. So what I'm saying is there's that initial, man, Lord, I don't even know what this means. It's the communion. So just take this as it is. You just fellowship with the Lord. Lord, I don't even know the fullness of this, but I know I want to die to myself. I don't want to live for me. Show me what that looks like, Holy Spirit, but I'm starting the race. I'm saying I'm dead. And then you wake up tomorrow and some flesh things, some attitude comes. No, Lord, the truth is I'm dead. I died to myself. You continue in a race with endurance because you want to finish, but it all goes back to because you started. So just start. Make a just a statement of faith with the Lord, saying, I am done with me. I'm dying to myself. I refuse to live for me. And then when tomorrow comes around, or when that person that pushes your button comes around, instead of complaining and being scared you're going to mess up, what everyone's saying is just the attitude of thanksgiving is actually going to keep you dead. Not you don't want to be like waking up, man, I just can't act out in the flesh. I just can't You wake up and thank God you don't live in the flesh and that you're not alive for you and you're actually alive for him. You thank God for the truth about your life. And that's what keeps you in the race. That's what keeps you dead. So it's super simple. But you just can't be deceived thinking you're dead, then alive, then dead and alive, and dead and alive. And man, I thought I was dead, but I got mad at someone. Well, after you got mad at someone, say, Lord, the truth is that's not even who I am. I'm not an angry person. Or whatever it may be. I don't lust. I'm not a lustful person. I'm freed. I'm born again. Even though you just did the thing you didn't want to do, you fellowship with God saying, that's not the truth about my life. And here's the barometer. When you do something and you wish you didn't do it, it reveals it's not who you are. When you have regret, when you have conviction, and you're like, man, it reveals what you just did and who you are two separate things. So making sure those two things stay separate and you don't get caught up believing you are what you're doing. You believe the truth of the gospel about who you are, even against you doing it. The truth is the only way you can walk it like a certain way is you have to first believe that way. You can't walk in a way you don't believe. That'd be silly. No one in the world even does that. So even if you're acting out in different things or different sin issues you're trying to get over, or attitudes or motives or whatever, the only way to get free from it is actually to believe you are free from it in the face of doing it. It's not hypocrisy. It's not you just putting up a front. It's actually you believing in faith, this is who I am, not what I'm doing. And that's a long answer there, but that's what keeps you dead. So don't believe you're going to die today and then tomorrow you're going to be awakened. That's the wrong dead raising we're going for. You stay dead, and if you feel like you're alive in that way, just Romans 6 says this, reckon yourselves dead indeed to sin, but alive unto God. So yeah,
So, just kind of piggybacking off of what Paul said, David was telling the story actually last night about my dad. So he's got a temper, and well, maybe not. I mean, Dad, if you're watching, you don't. Anyway, I don't think so. But so he one time got mad at his computer, so he just punched it like in the screen, and the whole screen just like shattered. Right. The worst part or story though is when he got really mad at a can opener, and I've gotten really mad at can openers too, FYI. And anyway, so he took it outside to the garage, got his hammer. Okay, the garage, first of all, is in a whole, it's not attached to the house. It's detached. So he had to walk across our yard to the garage, get a hammer, and then he beat the can opener till like it wasn't even recognizable anymore because he was so mad at it. Okay, so I'm just telling you that story because it's a little bit of background into how I operate, right, in the flesh. So in the flesh, I, also may have a temper, and that might arise in the flesh the most when I'm super tired. And so, it's something that I had been just kind of like, I'm dead to this thing, and just kind of believing for. And so, we went to Portugal for our anniversary. David, we rent a car because we're driving across the country, and they offer him a automatic. He says, no, I don't want an automatic. I want a manual. I want a manual car to drive in this very hilly country. So anyway, we're super jet lagged. We haven't slept at all. We've been up for 24 hours, and we go get coffee in the middle of downtown Lisbon. It's insane. And he parks on a hill. We go get our coffee. It's lovely. Walk back to the car, and we cannot get out of the parking space. Like, David cannot, and I can't drive stick, okay? So David cannot get this thing in reverse. And normally in the flesh, this would be a point in where my temperature is rising, right? And at some point, usually, I would have reached a breaking point. And I was amazed. We just actually just said, you know what, let's go somewhere else. And on the way, we just decided to pray. We get back, we still can't get the car in reverse. And we just said, okay, let's pray again. And David went around the corner and just saw the first person he saw, said, hey, can I get your help? It happened to be an American from New York. And he was in Lisbon for like holiday for the summer or something, and he came and like got us out in like 2 seconds, right? Turns out David wasn't pushing the right button. But anyway, after that we were fine. But the point of the story is afterwards, David and I looked at each other and we were both kind of like, I can't believe I didn't explode, right? I can't believe like my temper didn't get out of hand. And it was just this kind of like awakening moment of like, oh wow, like I can die to this. Like I don't have to live with a temper. I don't have to even say that I have a temper. You know, like it doesn't have to be a part of my life anymore. And it was just really like eye-opening for me, and just an awesome kind of story about testimony.
Can I add something real quick? That could also be like an insecurity or self-image thing or whatever it is. And like when we're saying this, we're not condemning people if they're in it. The whole thing is like we're growing. Me and Drew were talking about it on the way up. Like I want you guys to know it's possible. I didn't hear this in church growing up. I thought I was always going to be enslaved to sin. I thought I'd be forgiven, whatever that meant, but I'm still going to always sin. So that just didn't make sense. But that's what I thought. It's actually possible. You take anger, insecurity, lust, whatever it is, when you actually take a step back, you're not actually dealing with lust or anger or insecurity. You're actually just thinking about you. Like all sin is rooted in self. That's why Jesus said, first thing you got to do, deny yourself, right? And so yeah, it all goes back to how do you deny yourself? Because if you could kill you, all sin be taken care of. In the flesh is obviously taken care of through the cross, but your ability to walk in that grace just comes from you giving up your life, which you were never created for a life of sin anyways. So you giving it up isn't as hard as we think. It's just renewing, like what you're doing, what we all do is we're renewing our mind to the truth of the gospel. That's all it is. So.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add to that too is in that season, the thing I was meditating on the most was that he dwells in me, that I am his temple, right? And that's something that I continue to meditate on a daily basis. Like, I am your temple. I am the temple of God. He lives within me. He dwells in me. He's always inside me. And I think when you have that revelation that he dwells in me and that I am his temple, it just kind of automatically starts to clean house, right? Because the more you think about his life within you, the more just like that natural progression is that it's going to clean house.
I think we kind of answered the second part. It was, and surrender every aspect of life to Jesus. So how would we surrender every aspect of life to Jesus? We've answered that? I think so. Number 3 is, I love this question. What are some unconventional ways we can worship God? We'll start with you on that one, Scott.
Ooh, I like that. I like that because whenever people talk about worship, they always talk about they're talking about like a moment in church, or they're talking about like a genre or something. And I'm like, worship, like the book of Ecclesiastes says that you can eat worshipfully. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it says like Solomon's been through everything. He's had everything. He's had all the money, all the property, all the gardens, all the women, all the power, all the everything. And at the end of his life, he says, I recommend everyone enjoy their food, enjoy their drink, enjoy the work of their hands. At the end of all of it, it doesn't get much better than actually just enjoying that. So I tell people, like, what are unconventional ways to worship God? Man, you can worship God, and worshiping God is, we got to give a better definition to that. Worshiping God, worship is just a response to revelation. So something is revealed to you and you respond. A picture would be somebody makes a touchdown. Somebody makes a touchdown, and what does everybody do? The whole crowd, like everybody goes into a posture of worship in a weird way because something was revealed. A great thing was revealed, and we respond to the thing that just happened. So worship takes on a whole new thing if you have that mindset, if it's a response to revelation. So you realize something about God and you do something. So for me, if I'm really connecting with the Lord, I'm getting something, you might think I'm going to start singing something. I probably will make an art piece. I probably will get really excited and make some art piece. Or I might start cooking something. Or I might go meet a friend for coffee, important to somebody. Or I might take a walk and have what I think some people call wonder walks. I'll have a wonder walk. I'll go outside and I'll just talk to the Lord and let him reveal things to me through his creation. So there's just limitless ways to live this thing. I'm always trying to take the cap off. Like, worship is not a genre. And to people that sing and play, I would recommend big time that you find other ways to worship God other than music, because you'll bottleneck things. And if you'll get so close to it that I see people borderline start to worship. They start to worship culture. We get this like YouTube worship generation. We're always watching people worship in a song because everything's videoed now. Every worship thing's videoed. And it's kind of awkward because we're all just sitting around watching somebody else's intimacy. It's no different than other things you're thinking about. What other moments would you sit there and watch an act of intimacy that's not good? We do the same thing spiritually. We just watch other people's intimacy, and then we call it our worship. We do the same thing in churches. We go in and watch them be intimate with the Lord. We're like, all right, I'm good. So you really have to break into this thing of just enjoying God in everything. Like, can you sit there and eat your meal and just knowing God didn't even have to make food taste good? But he did, because he's that good. Like, he makes all this stuff enjoyable because he's amazing. Revelation, right? It's revealed to me that God even makes this stuff enjoyable in life. And I just thank you for that. I love you, Lord. Just talking to him all day long. So I know it's like a huge answer, but the unconventional ways of worship, I think that is the stuff. That is life with Jesus.
That was awesome. One thing I would add to that is, Scott said it, so I can't really add anything to that, but just put my own perspective on it. Is in beauty. Like, I'm a very visual person, and I heard someone say anything that's beautiful is just something that reflects a God. And it's where society has gotten off, is you are going back to the thing as the source when actually God was the source. So, diminishing returns. There are people who literally worship nature. And in one sense, it makes sense. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It does reflect God, but it's not God. You can think of so many things, the more you think about it, that fall into that category. It's beautiful things that God has made, and we're worshiping the thing. And so I think that's kind of what Scott already said, but that was just a revelation to me. I have something written in my notes that I'm still chewing on, and it just says, to create something beautiful is to lead people in worship. And I don't act like I fully understand that, but it was cool to me.
Yeah, maybe just to add something is, I think, and maybe you guys would agree with this, but worship, is always the motive of it's always going to come from what you're living for. A lot of people worship work. because they wake up and live for work. Right? It's a very small, like, simple thing, but like their day is centered around work, and life revolves around their schedule, what needs to be done, what they have to do. And there's like obviously there's responsibilities, there's school, there's different things, but you wake up for one reason, and that's for Him. And then that's the motive. And then all this stuff, what we're saying, like, that's where worship comes from. You know why you're alive. It wasn't too hard for Adam to worship in the garden, because when he opened his eyes, all he saw was God. He knew the only reason I am is because He is, you know. And so it's just recognizing why you're alive, and it's not for you, it's for Him, and that'll birth that worship for sure. You know?
All right, last question. It's dragons. No. Where is it? How can someone fear God while still living as though He is your friend?
We get the fear of the Lord. A lot of times when we think the fear of the Lord, we just think like God is. You ever heard somebody say, like, you need to fear God, He can kill you? Yeah, like, thanks. I was already like stressed out about this walk with Jesus, and now that I really know I'm failing every day, I can't wait to walk another day with Him. Like, this is not sustainable at all. Like, you know what I'm saying? The fear, like, we need more fear of the Lord. We need more fear of the Lord. Yes, you know, Proverbs says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the foundation of it all. But I think it'd be more helpful if we could see it as the fear of the Lord could be better defined as we don't want anything to hinder love. And Corey Russell puts it in the fear of the Lord is that everything matters, right? So the fear of the Lord is like how you talk, how you go about your day. It all matters, but not in like a fear like I'm going to mess up. When I say I don't want anything to hinder love, like I wouldn't want to do anything. This is the heart posture of the fear of the Lord. I wouldn't want to do anything in my life that would hinder what I have going on here with Him. Does this make sense? Does that make sense to y'all? For real, I want to know if this is like clicking in your brain. Because we always just think the fear of the Lord is like this. Like the abusive parent is about to like hit me. Fear of the Lord. Oh. And like, yes, He is God. He is Holy Father. But He's also Father. He's holy and Father. And the fear of the Lord is I do not want to do anything that would hinder love. Because He loves me so much. And He hates sin. You know why He hates sin? Because sin destroys me. Because sin is like cancer in my body. Would you think that somebody is mean to you if they hated the cancer in your body? No, that doesn't even make sense, does it? It makes sense. Like, oh yeah, man, I hate it too. Like, you get on board. Like, yeah, I hate this too. He loves you. He hates the sin. And the fear of the Lord is I will do anything to keep this communion going. This is so beautiful. Like, I wouldn't ever want to mess this up. Does that make sense?
I would add to that real quick, like an example that I've used in the past, because I think that's such a good definition. You know, you don't want to mess up what we have here, and so often we treat our week in a way that we would never treat anything else. Our week with the Lord, that is. So, like, the example I've used is, how would Bethany feel if I told her, hey, for the next like 6 months, let's just get all of our dates out of the way like this week, and then in like 6 months maybe we'll do it again, right? That's kind of how we treat God on Sunday, is let's have this awesome day, you know, this like Sabbath day, and then I'll see you next Sunday, right? But that's not how relationships work. Like, you have to acknowledge every day. And it doesn't mean it has to be a big to-do. You know, like sometimes if the schedule doesn't allow, like even just 5 minutes, and I think of it as like orienting me, because the further you go without that orientation, the further off that you go. So just like literally 60 seconds you could go every day. And that could be way more valuable than spending, 12 hours once a month.
Okay. So we have. How was that helpful to you guys? Cool. Good. Yeah. Does anybody have any like questions like that maybe were sparked in this conversation before we end? Yeah. Any clarifying questions? We're so intimidating.
The talk show chairs.
This is the view.
Oh no! I cancel it.
Okay, cool. I just got a text. I want to know more about the dragons.
About the dragons? Here's the thing about dragons in the Bible. Why you don't want to be riding a dragon is the dragon always represents the devil. Super simple, all right? That's not my opinion. That's just Bible. He's literally called a dragon multiple times. So don't want to be caught riding that guy. He's a bad guy. So you want to stay on that horse. It's glorious. It's righteous. That dragon, not so good.
But what if your youth pastor says that the horses are boring?
Well, I plan on riding a lion.
Ooh.
When I get to heaven, it says the lion will be with the lamb. I know what all that means, but like I'm also gonna be like, but I want to ride a lion. Like I couldn't do this on earth.
Technically, we're all going to be riding the air. We'll be caught up with him.
Yeah. Before that though,
Yeah.
lion.
Yeah, 100%. I'll probably do a lion as well.
And just give him a little pat. Let's go.
I also think the horses
Aslan.
that they're referencing have to be better than our horses. That's just my personal opinion only.
They're probably covered in eyes,
Oh, good Lord.
6 wings.
Okay, cool. Well, we are going to break for lunch. So let me think about this. Okay, we have